Hey guys, this is the last lesson of chapter 7. This is 7.5, which is just looking at different proportions we can find in triangles. I suggest that you take the copied notes, the paper notes that I left behind for you, and you are filling them in as we go, so you get an idea of how to set these up and how to work through these problems. So the first one, we're going to look at 3 different scenarios. The first scenario is what's called the side splitter theorem. It says that if you have a parallel line in your triangle, that it is going to split the two sides proportionally. So those two parallel sides tell me that it's going to split proportionally, and that A over B would be equivalent to C over D. Another way to set up the proportion is you could do A over C equals B over D, and you would get the same answer. So whichever way makes more sense, but we're matching up either the parts on the same side or the parts in the same position. So if you look at number 1, I can set that up as 8 over 10 equals 6 over x. And then we're just going to cross multiply and solve. We get 8x equals 60. And then you're going to divide by 8. And you get x is equal to 7.5. Number 2, same kind of idea. These should be pretty easy to set up if you just think top over bottom. So I do x over 13 minus x. I got to do the same order on the other side. Top over bottom. 2 over 3. And then this one we got to cross multiply carefully. We get 3x equals 26 minus 2x. Make sure you distribute the 2. And then I'm going to add the 2x to the other side. And I get 5x equals 26. And we divide by 5. And you should get x is equal to 5.2. Okay, let's try the next one. So this next one is just a corollary to it. It's, instead of being in a triangle, it's 3 separate parallel lines. So if we see these 3 separate parallel lines, we know that they also will split the 2 lines that are intersecting them, the 2 transversals, proportionally. So we can set this up the same kind of way. The picture just looks different. It's top over bottom equals top over bottom. E over F equals G over H. So if you look at the first example, we'll just do 4 over 6 equals 5 over x. And we cross multiply and solve. We get 4x is equal to 30. And divide by 4, and you'll get x is equal to 7.5. And then if we look at the next one, if I start with top over bottom, I get 9 over 4, but we have to be careful on this next side. On the next side, I don't know what this top is. We need to find the missing piece. So if you notice a piece that you need to use is missing, we have to find it. And I need you to think carefully about how you're going to find that right now. So if I looked at this and I actually put a number in there. So right now the whole thing's 11. And I know the bottom section is x. But let's pretend for a second that this bottom section was 3. Think about what math I'm going to need to do to find the top section. Hopefully you're thinking that we need to subtract. So this would end up being 11 minus 3, which is how we would get that it's 8. But I need you to think about that when you find that missing piece. You're going to have to do whatever the whole thing is minus the part, since that's a part that's missing. So this is going to be 11 minus x. So again, pay attention to the fact that this has to be whole minus part to set that up. So then it's going to be the top part, which is now 11 minus x because we found it, over the bottom part to finish that proportion. And then we cross multiply, we get 9x is equal to distribute 44x minus 4x. Go ahead and add the 4x to the other side. We get 13x equals 44, and we're going to divide by 13. Some of these are going to turn out to be not as nice decimals, so I'm just going to put this as 3.38. All right, we've got one more. So this is the last rule. The last rule is if you have an angle bisector inside of a triangle. So first thing I'm going to do here, I should have already marked this, but mark in that this is an angle bisector. This is what's going to make this different from the other ones. The other two involve parallel lines. This one you're going to see congruent angle marks. So the theorem says if a ray bisects an angle of a triangle, then it divides the opposite sides into 2 segments proportional to the other 2 sides. So what I want you to do to set up this proportion is we can do a whole side, so I can take this whole side, but then we're going to match it with the part that's next to it for one of our fractions, and then we're going to do whole side on the other side and match it with the part that it's proportional, that it's next to in the other proportion. So it's going to look like J over K is equal to n over m. So I did whole over part next to it. That's how you're going to set this up. So if you look at number 1, I'm going to start with one of the whole sides. It doesn't matter where you start. You could actually start with a piece too if you want to, but I usually start with the whole side. So let's start with 10. Then we want to put that over the part next to it, which is 5. And then that's going to be equal to the other whole, make sure you're following the same pattern, over the part that's next to it is x. And then once the proportion is set up, we just do 10x is equal to 60 and divide by 10. We get x equals 6. And now let's take a look at how you would set up number 2. So on the left side, I can do whole over part next to it, 6 over x. And then on the right side, the whole piece, the whole side is 4. But I again run into a similar problem here, as I don't know what this part is that's next to it. So you've got to do the math here to figure out what that part is. Remember, you want to do the whole minus the part to set that up. So the whole in this case is 6. Sometimes the whole might be x, so just look at what the bigger piece is. It's always the bigger piece minus the smaller piece. If you accidentally do it in the wrong order, you're going to get a negative answer, and we're not allowed to have negative answers. So make sure you're doing the bigger piece in the picture, and then the smaller minus the smaller piece in the picture. So this is going to be 6 minus x. Then we're going to cross multiply. That's 36 minus 6x is equal to 4x. And then since we have 2 sets of x's, I'm going to get them together. Make sure you're adding this 6x to the other side. You get 36 is equal to 10x. And then you're going to divide by 10. You get x equals 3.6. So those are the 3 different rules. The next page, we're going to look at them now mixed together and make sure that you can solve the problems if they're all mixed together. So in number 1, we want to go ahead and set this up. This one didn't do a good job at marking, but this one has parallel lines right now. So since they're parallel lines, I know I can do top over bottom equals top over bottom. So it's going to be x over x minus 3 equal to x plus 4 over 5. So now to solve that, if I cross multiply, I get 5x is equal to x minus 3 times x plus 4. These are going to require you to do a little bit more algebra here. So I'm going to zoom in so I have a little bit more space. So first off, this one we're going to have to double distribute here. We're going to distribute both of those on that side. You're going to get x squared plus 4x. And then we have to distribute the other one. I'm going to get negative 3x minus 12. And that is still equal to the 5x on the other side. So we have 5x is equal to, if I simplify, x squared plus x minus 12. But you should sense the fact that we have an x squared and an x that I'm going to have to factor here. So I got to get this to the other side so I know one side equals 0. I get 0 equals x squared minus 4x minus 12. And then the same thing we were doing yesterday, I need you guys to factor these. So I'm looking for factors of negative 12. That'd make negative 4. So again, you're going through your list of things. Maybe you think 3 and 4 first, but those aren't 4 away. Then if I do 2 and 6, 2 and 6 are 4 away. I just have to think about which one's negative so that when I combine them, I get negative 4. And that's going to be the 6, so it's going to be negative 6. So we get 0 equals x plus 2 times x minus 6 as our 2 factors. And then if I set those equal to 0, I get x equals negative 2 and x equals positive 6. But like we talked about yesterday, they can't be negative because that's the side, that's the piece of a line right now. It's a segment. So it's just x equals 6. All right, back to the other problems. So now that I look at number 2, that one's supposed to have whoosh marks, and so is number 4. These are our angle bisector ones. So with the angle bisector ones, remember you want the whole side. So the whole side is x plus 3 over the piece that's next to it. So if you look at this, this is another place where we're missing what that piece is. That's what I have to use. You can't just automatically use the 8. We have to use the piece. So we've got to find the piece. We've got to do whole minus part to find that piece. So that's going to be 8 minus x. That's what's going to end up on the bottom here. So I have whole side over piece next to it. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Whole side is 5 over the piece next to it is x. And then I can cross multiply. That's going to be x times x plus 13 equals 5 times 8 minus x. I'm just going to carefully make sure that I FOIL this together the right way. It's going to be x squared plus 13x is equal to 40 minus 5x. And then since I have an x squared with an x, I know I have to factor, but I've got to make one side 0 first. My rule is that the x squared is in charge, so everything needs to move towards him. He's the highest exponent. So the 5x is going to move over, and the 40 is going to move over. And they cancel on that side, so we end up with x squared plus 18x minus 40 on that side equal to 0. And now I need to factor it. I'm looking for factors of negative 40 that make positive 18. So maybe off the bat you think 8 and 5, but those aren't 18 away since it's negative. They need to be 18 away from each other. There's 4 and 10. Those aren't 18 away. What else goes into 42 and 20? Those are the two I want. And then I just have to decide what needs to be negative to get positive 18. So the 2 needs to be negative so that when I add them, I get positive 18. So that's x minus 2 times x plus 20 equal to 0, which means x minus 2 equals 0, or x plus 20 equals 0. And you get x equals 2, x equals negative 20. It can't be negative 20 because it's a side of a triangle, so it has to be x equals 2. Okay? What I'd like you to do right now is if you pause it and just take a couple minutes and try the other two, see if you can get them right, then I'm going to explain to you how to do the rest of them. So you should pause it in 3, 2, 1. Alright, hopefully you tried these on your own, like we would do regularly in class. Now I'm going to set them up and make sure you've got this. So for number 3, there's 2 different ways you could set it up right now. Just looking at how my brain wants to set it up is I want to do 8 over x equals x plus 5 over 12. But realize you could also do x over x plus 5 equals 8 over 12, or a variation of either of those. There's different ways to match it up. You can keep the pieces that are on the same side of the triangle together, or you can keep the pieces that are in the same position together. So either way, if we cross multiply, we get 12x is equal to 8x plus 40. And then this one's nice. I don't have an x squared, so this one should have been easy for you to solve. We're going to subtract the 8x. We get 4x equals 40, and we're going to divide by 4. You should get x equals 10. All right, let's try the other one. Let's try number 4. So if you didn't try it yet, try it on your own because it's good practice. This one is an angle bisector one. The nice thing is all the things we need are filled in. We just have to set up the proportion correctly. So I would start with a whole side, and that has to be set over the part next to it. So the x plus 4 is going to go with the 4. And then the other whole side is x, and the part next to it is x minus 2. This one is going to push you a little bit more to use your algebra skills. The first cross multiplying, we have x plus 4 times x minus 2 equal to 4x. And then you've got to FOIL this together, or double distribute. That's what you guys are used to, double distribute. So I'm going to distribute first the x to everything. So it's going to be x squared minus 2x. And then I'm going to distribute the 4 to everything. That's going to be plus 4x minus 8 equal to 4x. And then we have x squared plus 2x minus 8 equal to 4x. And this one does have an x squared with an x, so I'm going to have to factor, but I need to make sure I make it equal 0 first. Don't try and factor yet. It's got to equal 0 before you factor. So we have x squared minus 2x minus 8 equal to 0. And now we can factor. We're looking for factors of negative 8 that make negative 2. And the only factors of 8 I can think of are 2 and 4, and those are 2 away. So that's 2 and 4. And the 4 has got to be negative, so we get the negative 2 that we have in that middle spot. So it's going to be x minus 4 times x plus 2 equals 0. And we're going to set them each equal to 0. So we can get our two answers. X equals 4 and x equals negative 2, but the negative 2 will not work because it can't be a negative side, so we just want the x equals 4. So your homework this weekend, you have a couple things. You need to make sure you're doing the 7.5 worksheet that you're going to get today, and then you also have the ACT review problems. Those are going to be due on Monday, so please make sure that you have worked on those so you don't have anything to worry about except for the test on Tuesday. We will review together in class on Monday, and then you will take your test on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.